We're ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Question, is my screen showing?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Very purple screen.
It's also behind me if you didn't already see it. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's social hour. We are happy that you're here. My name is Sauda, and I will be your host today. So today's session is on prompt engineering. Last time we did introduce AI tools, LLMs. We went a little bit into Google's Notebook LM, and we do have a recording of that. If you are interested, you can definitely gain access to that recording later on. Just as a heads up, this session is also being recorded. So if you don't want to be recorded, you can go ahead and be off camera. We do appreciate anyone who does want to come on camera because it kind of creates more of the kind of social environment that social hour is aiming for. So there are a lot of different events that are coming up. So just to do a quick run of show, the first 5 minutes of this session, we're going to be waiting on other people to show up. So I will be giving you guys some different announcements and resources, events that are coming up in the chat. And then we will break out into networking breakout rooms where it will be just 10 minutes max, and you can go in there. When you guys are in the breakout rooms, I always recommend to speak to each other because that's the goal, networking. Also, share your LinkedIn profiles. What we're trying to do is build a LinkedIn community. And on that note, I'm actually going to go ahead and drop in the chat our LinkedIn social hour group. Right now, again, we're still in the building phase of things. So when you go in there, a lot of it will be announcements, but I do hope that you guys can feel welcome and free to post in there as well as students of MDC. And it is an open group, so technically really anybody can go in there and just post. Of course, we have multiple admins who will be checking on different things, but overall what the key is just to build that sense of community across the campuses. As I always mention at the beginning of every social hour, it is not a campus specific event. This is a college-wide initiative that we are working on here at EnTec, and we have members on our team from almost all the campuses, right? Just to kind of name a few, we have Natasha Campos, who is our Apple Swift student success coach. She's here. She's based at the West, but she does work with students from multiple campuses. We have Dr. Stephanie Best, who works primarily at our Wilson campus, but again is a college-wide coordinator for women in tech. We have Professor Cruz, who's actually one of our presenters today, who's joining us from the Hialeah campus, and you guys will be hearing from him a little bit later, as well as Professor Gabb, who's from the North campus, and so many others. So as you can see, right, what we're doing is we're modeling what we hope for you guys to achieve as well, which is building connections across your network. I mean, in your network across all the campuses. So I'm almost at the 5 minute mark, and I haven't even shared any of the things that I was going to share with you. So let me go ahead and share that. Let me change my screen so I can show you guys. All right. So what I want to do is actually share a couple of major upcoming things with you. The first thing is, can you guys still see my screen? Can you see me moving around?
Yes, Sola.
All right,
Yes.
cool. Cool. Not that. All right, I'll just share them here and then I'll drop them all in the chat later on. So the first one is our Tech Talent Summit and Career Development Day. This is hosted by Miami Tech Works as well as MDC Works. Some of you may have recently worked with or in the past our workforce managers. They are Juliet Bedard and Christian Ortega. They mostly work with our tech students. If you're not in a tech program, we do also have a business coordinator whose information or manager whose information can be shared as well. This event is going to have many different things, right? It's going to have a showcase. It's going to have employers coming out. There may even be on the spot gas cards that are given out for students, as well as maybe on the spot interviews. So I will drop this link in the chat. It's one of the main things I wanted to show you guys. The second thing is on April 29th, we have our Apple Swift Showcase. Again, I'll be dropping this link in the chat once I stop screen sharing. This is another event that I think you guys should definitely come out to. We do have an Apple Swift program here at MDC, right? And I mentioned Natasha Campos earlier. So she's the coordinator for that program. And what this event does is that it actually showcases and highlights what our students have been learning in the program and those skills. So I think it's an amazing opportunity. Again, it's an opportunity to come out and network as well.
Mhm.
And then lastly, we have on May 1st, our AI Student Showcase. Again, another amazing event that's in the works right now. And same thing as the Apple Swift Showcase, except that the students are going to be presenting on the AI side. What have they gained? What have they learned so far? All right, so those are the 3 events that I wanted to share with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and I'll post those links in the chat. In the meantime, what we're going to do is now we're going to break you guys out into the networking breakout rooms that will be done by 12:15. All right. So have fun. Please do talk to each other. Hi, Jocelyn. I see you. All right. So yes. Let me see. Oh, and then if there's anyone in here in terms of the team and you want to go in, definitely just let Stephanie know and she can put you in there as well.
Yep, happy to do that. Just let me.
Thank you.
The students that are coming in now, I need to move them to one of the rooms. Let's see. So if you just came in, we're in breakout rooms and I'm moving you into a breakout room so that you can be able to network with some of your peers.
Should we be jumping in some of those?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
may. I'm going to put you in one, Professor Cruz. And for the students that are still in the main room, you should have received an invite to join a breakout room. If you do not see that, let me know and I can try to help you.
Okay. Awesome. So everyone should be back.
Man, I got to tell you, Sada, that breakout session was so intense. I feel like it was too short, man. We was having a good conversation, but I love it. That energy was amazing.
I'm glad. And honestly, guys, any breakout room with James is going to have amazing energy. So next time, if you can hop in a room with James, if you want to hop in a room with James, just let me know. But yeah, so welcome back, everyone. In the chat, I am dropping just one more time our upcoming events with EnTec, Miami Tech Works, MDC Works, all of our collaborators. I highly encourage attending any or all of these events that are upcoming. All right. So I don't want to take too much more time. I'm just going to very quickly introduce our presenters today. So we have our Professor Gabb from the North Campus. Some of you guys may remember him from our previous sessions. Thank you, Professor Gabb, for coming back and helping us out here again at Social Hour. And then we also have Professor Rodolfo Cruz. He's from our Hialeah campus. And I've never taken a class with him, but what I've heard so far is that he's pretty awesome. So I'm excited to have him here at our, our Social Hour today. So what they're going to be doing today is really going over a little bit more in depth of what we started last time. So last time we talked about, okay, here's a specific tool. It was Notebook LM by Google. What are some different use cases that you can do? So you know that you can use an AI tool for many different things. And what we're going to do today is what is the best way to use it, right? So how do you do that? If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. You can also drop them in the chat, and we can address the questions as we go along. I like to do whatever the speakers want. So once you guys start presenting, just let us know what's your best method. Yeah, and that's it. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Dr. Gabb, you are muted.
All right, thank you, Suada, and thank you, Dr. Rodolfo. Cruz, thank you guys for being here. I think, we can progress the same way we did last time, where if you would just check the Q&A list queue, and whenever there's anything, feel free to just interject and get us going, because like I said, and like you experienced last time, I just keep talking, right? So today we're exploring the topic of prompt engineering and how to use it. And we all use prompt engineering. We do it whenever we're interacting with these LLM systems. But one of the things that we wanted to try and touch on is how to do those effectively. So the role that I'm going to play today is I'm going to play basically student, interviewer, Socratic method person role. And Professor Cruz is going to be showing us some techniques and to be able to utilize LLMs effectively for our learning, studying and learning process. So with that said, I know I'm going to ask him questions and throw questions at him, and he's going to be answering those for us. So we know that there are different techniques for prompt engineering, but could you give us an idea of what the goals are and for prompt engineering?
Well, and this is a very it's a moving target nowadays, right? Prompt engineering is the hottest topic right now, and everybody thinks they know what prompt engineering is, but what is it? And it's just basically communicating with the large language models, right? And there are different strategies to do that, and there are different reasons and goals when you do that. Now, let me share my screen with my favorite large language model, ChatGPT. Everybody's favorite, right? We're all, gotten used to ChatGPT. The question is always going to be, what do I use this tool for, right? And there is always, like in any tool, you have to remember a couple of things. Number one, a tool is a tool, and it should be used as a tool. That's number one, and that's where prompt engineering comes into play. And number two, remember that if you use the tool the wrong way, you can affect yourself in a negative manner, right? And from the point of view of the students, this is, if you use the tool for cheating or whatever, as opposed to using the tool for learning. Okay, so a prompt is just a simple question that you're asking a large language model. These questions, if you want to, large language models are very sensitive to the details of the question. If you ask the question the wrong way, you will not get the right answer. So you have to be very specific about what you're asking of the large language model. And there are, of course, different ways to approach this. For example, you can propose a role and basically ask, based on this role, what is it that you want the large language model to give you? For example, act as a programming professor. This is a role, right? It's something similar to this. Act as a programming professor, or you could say you are a programming professor, or you are my best programming professor, whatever you want, but you're giving it a role. And normally after that, you want to ask a question based on that role, right? You could say something like summarize. And pardon my spelling, that's why I have always Grammarly connected in my computer, right? Given that we have artificial intelligence everywhere, so if I do something wrong, you're gonna see it immediately, right? Uh, that it jumps in and tells me, "Hey, what are you doing?" Right? That's what artificial intelligence is nowadays. Summarize the concept, let's say, of um, uh, if statements in Python, let's say, right? So you're giving it a target, you're giving it an action, um, and then you can give it a purpose. You know, why you're doing this, right? And why do you want to learn about Python? To help me, let's say, to help me study for a quiz, right? And you give it a go. This is very simple prompt, but one thing about prompts is that you can establish a connection with a large language model and then deal a little bit more with that, right? So you get your response. It might give you example. You should have asked for example, or we should have asked for examples, for example. And it will give you the details, right? And this is a very simple prompt. So if anybody has a question,
So I have the questions, right? So I was gonna say, couple of things, like how could right there, you're giving it a role, you're giving it a purpose, and then you're asking it a task for it to complete. And right there, that was a very simple and straightforward one, and it gave you back a lot of information, right? How can I, as a student, better structure that prompt, so that it's a little bit more focused for that like a specific learning context.
like a specific learning context, can you give me an example?
So, for example, we're getting tested on, since we're using programming as an example here, we're learning C++, and we're going to get a quiz on the if statement and the various formats of the if statement. How would I be able to focus in that prompt so that it's geared specifically to the information that I'm looking for, as opposed to giving me a lot of information that I can't utilize?
Right. And this is where communications come into play. You know, one thing that we all need to remember when we're talking to large language models, that we're communicating, and this is where the clear part comes to play, right? You have to be the details have to be precise, right? I could be in a particular case of the just following the same example. You could say something about explain this concept in more details. Um, um, you can follow up on the prompt. Let me put it to you that way, in more detail, and you can.
So prompting is more like the conversation,
It
right?
is.
And it's not necessarily a single prompt.
It isn't at all. It's a conversation. And the one thing that you have to remember also, especially in the case of ChatGPT and some other large language models, is that it gets to know you. It knows what you're doing at some point, right? You know, you don't have to start from scratch every time. If you use it enough, you can have these conversations constantly. And you can go back. You can go back to any of these. For example, this example over here, and you say, can you explain this code in more detail? So it is a conversation, right? It is a conversation, right? So you give it a piece of the code, you go back to the information that I already gave you, and you can dig a little deeper on what you're doing, a little deeper on what you're doing, and ask for more details. Ask also for different levels, right? And so like this explanation is too complicated. Can you like give me as if I am a complete beginner and I've never seen programming before, okay? Which is normally how our students in the intro classes are, right? In the intro C++ and Python and so on. So you can go in deeper and go always and reiterate and loop back into what the conversation that you're having and ask for more details, or even pivot into something else if you want to go that way.
So the more information that I give the LLM in my prompts, the better, correct?
Yes, because you're providing context. You're providing a context to guide the conversation, correct? That's important because remember the large language model is not you. Unless you tell it everything that you are thinking about up front and where you want to go, then it won't know. You have to give it context.
So do large language models all have only correct answers in it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Remember how these things are. They were trained on a large body of knowledge, but they were trained, and this is important to know about large language models, they were trained to give you an answer. So if you ask a question and they don't know the answer, they will give you the answer, right? So, and occasionally they are wrong. Occasionally they are wrong, and you have to be able to tell, right? You have to be able to tell. What I have been using personally nowadays is when I see some answer that is suspicious, I go back and say, can you verify that this answer is correct? Can you search on the internet? And in ChatGPT, we do have a search button now. Go to the web, do your research, take your time. That's what I usually say, and verify that this information is correct. But at the end of the day, yes, hallucinations is what we call them, right? The wrong answer, the wrong fact, the wrong um, the wrong code. Even when you're coding, sometimes I can tell you that when I have asked ChatGPT for coding, 99% of the time it's okay, but occasionally it gives me wrong code, right? And that is hallucination. And by the way, human beings do the same.
So this is true, right?
It is.
So given the fact that it could give me wrong information, what are some techniques that I can use to identify it? If I'm trying to use this to learn and I'm not sure, I don't know a particular topic, how would I be able to tell if something is off? What are some of the clues that indicates that I would need further information or for it to clarify certain things or to check on certain things? Are there any clues that I could look at in the responses and say, hey, this doesn't look right? How do I do
Yes.
that?
What I do, and of course, this is just something that you have to um, become better at with experience, right? Occasionally, they are too perfect or too vague, right? They give you some general statement that sounds really nice, but if you read it, it's not telling you anything, right? It's not telling you anything specific. That's normally what gives it away for me, right? Um, Also, if it's citing any facts or if it's citing a specific quote from somebody, you have to make sure that that's true. And the only way to do that is normally to just Google it, right? But that would be a warning for you that quotes and specific facts has to be verified, right? Um, Sometimes the logic breaks. Sometimes it starts talking about something and you say that doesn't really follow, right? And remember that one thing about large language models is that they are designed to generate words that sound correct. So occasionally you get a statement and the statement goes like, I don't know, it doesn't really sounds really well, really good, right? Also, it tends to use a lot of buzzwords that may or may not fit with the answer to the question that you asked. That's another thing. Synergy, nexus, things like that that many cases people don't use in normal conversation might be a tell that it's just making things up, right? It's supposed to give you a precise answer.
So
But
asking it for clarification and words that you're not familiar with, the meaning of those terms
right,
and how they're using on there.
right.
Okay, so far now, I know I got to give it context. Context is basically the information around the question and the problem that I'm trying to solve. And then I need to give it information that is accurate, that is not vague, so that it can give me back some good results. And I also now know that, hey, it's not just one prompt, it's a conversation. So I can build these things up as we go step by step. Okay.
Absolutely.
So if I wanted to say, again, I'm trying to prep for this test, and I know that, you know, these LLMs have been trained on all this information, good information and bad information. But I'm taking this course, and this course has information that the instructor has provided or is required, such as a textbook or notes, etc., that I know should be correct, right? How can I utilize that information to help me in the preparation for for my test?
Well, the easiest way to do, and that's a great question, because if you're asking it from a specific document or a PowerPoint or a PDF, it should have less hallucinations, because now it's getting the information exactly from a source that you are trusting, right? And so what I normally show the students that they can do is, for example, you can drop a PDF. This is a PDF of chapter 1 of my operating system book for the class that I'm teaching right now. So there you go. You drop the PDF. All you have to do is just drag it and drop it in there. The PDF is a trusted source. It's the book itself, right? That you're using for the class. It has a bunch of very complicated concepts in there, and you know, things that are tough for the students. So, but one thing that you can do to start with is you can say from the PDF uploaded, make sure that you know that it knows where it's supposed to go get the information, right? That's kind of like providing the context. Summarize every section in simple language. Something like that should be a starting point, right? So language, right? And then you click on it, and it will go to work. It will start thinking. It will read the document. Sometimes it comes back really quickly. Sometimes it takes a while, but it will tell you for every section the main points, right? It will summarize it in simple language for you. And then you could go on, and once it's done here,
So I know while we're looking at that, and I saw a couple of comments in there in the chat. Yes, you know, here we're utilizing Chat GPT, but certainly there are other tools out there, like the one noted in there, using Notebook LLM to do that. That is available out there for you to utilize. So whichever one of these LLM interfaces or models that you use, you can utilize them in all of them. So this is just
yeah, the
ChatGPT,
principles apply
but
to
the
all of them.
principles, exactly, the principles apply the same across. So you're going to have that conversation while providing that information to the system.
Yeah, and if you can see here, you know, once I ask that question, just summarize the different sections of the book. Number one, you could go deeper into any of these sections, like we have seen before. You just copy and say, go deeper, explain a little bit more any of these concepts, whatever the concept is. But then in here, it kind of knows already what you want, where you're going with this, right? You're trying to learn from this book, and it asks you, would you like, you know, quiz style review, flashcards, one page cheat sheet, etc., etc. But you can ask it, for example, give me 5 questions from this content to help me prepare for a quiz. I could say make it, you know, the more detailed you make it, the better, right? Make it multiple choice with 4 options. And I could say, for example, provide me with the correct answer and explain why this one is the correct answer.
So now you've introduced another constraint within this system of how to prompt engineer. So now we're looking not only at the task, we're not only looking at the context, but which is the task is giving you the quiz. The context given is the information you've provided it in that chapter. But now you're giving it the format that you wanted to give you the result
Absolutely.
in, right? So we're
Absolutely.
looking at task, context, format. These are important components of a prompt that you're going to do in there. So these 4 pillars of prompt engineering is key to getting good results. So here now we've introduced that format, the output. So you tell it how you want the output to be formatted, whether it's a table or a
Right.
quiz with the answers. So, and you're being very accurate, right? Very precise in the, I should say more precise, right? Because we can be very, very precise, which can, be a lot of information, or we can just give it to the level of precision that we need, just like we do in mathematics. So
yeah, the more precision, the better. And because of the problem with hallucinations, the more precise your prompt is, the less is the chance that there will be hallucinations, right? Because it leaves less room for the large language model to guess what is it that you want, right? So you're and implicitly here we're also giving it the audience, right? Even though it never said who the audience is, it should be obvious here that the audience is a student that is trying to learn for a quiz, right? So you click on that, and of course you get your questions, you get your answers. It tells you which one is the correct one and why, and so on and so forth. Always remember this, which we already mentioned. Regardless what you do, how much context you give it, always keep in the back of your mind that this could be wrong, right? Anything. Now, these large language models have become better and better as time passes, right? At not having a lot of hallucinations, but keep that in mind. You can always go back to the book and then double check that this is the right question and the right answer and the right explanation.
Could I modify that that prompt and say, could you reference the page number or where
Yes.
in the book that you got it from that material, so that
Good
you could go
point.
back to it?
Good point. You can actually absolutely do that. You could say, please. I always say, please, just in case when they take over the world, they remember me and that I was the nice one. Please give me the page number and paragraph where the relevant information is found, or something along those lines. Absolutely, you can do that. And it will help you, right? Double check if this is correct. And it also help you go back and read a little bit around that particular context of that question within that book, right? Oops, now it's throwing Python. That's cool. It does that when it needs to do a lot more work. We'll have to wait for it to execute it. It's analyzing the PDF. That's what it's doing. There we go. Roll of the processor. Found on page 2, paragraph 2. There you go. You see, and it gives you a little sample sentence there where it got it, right? So yes, this is very good when for you to go back and really read about around that concept if it's a concept that you don't understand, and you can go back and if you want to double check also that the questions and the answers are correct, right? Again, never trust LLM 100%. You never know for sure if it hallucinated somewhere in there. Of course, there is a little less chance if you're giving it a PDF or any other document that is extracting information from it, right? As opposed to just going to the general body of knowledge on which it was trained. Who knows how many PDF books it was trained on, and they might all have slightly different what do you call it, definitions of what a processor is or something like that. So it might end up with some hybrid response.
And can I have it act as a tutor for me?
Absolutely.
And how would I go about having it tutor me on this information?
Yeah, remember that the structure of, giving it a role. So one of them could be act as a programming tutor, let's say, because I'm a programmer. So that's what I normally do, but it could be any tutor that you want. So they just take this, act as whatever, as a template, right? Acts as a programming tutor and help me understand the concept of recursion. For example, understand the concept of recursion. Then you could say, because the tutor is going to give you an explanation of the concept of recursion, you could say later on, for example, ask me questions after the explanation to check my understanding.
What is that called? Is that called the Socratic method? Are you giving it
It is.
for it to act use and tutor using the Socratic method?
It is. It could be a Socratic method. It could be a little more complicated than this, but this is, a way of interacting as opposed to just getting, right? And one thing that you don't want to use these large language models for is as a vending machine for knowledge, right? You don't want to just get. You want to interact. You want to have that conversation, that back and forth, right? With it. That's how it becomes really powerful when it comes to learning, right? So you can go ahead and do this and give it some minute or two, and in the meantime, remember the Socratic method is more like a dialogue that involves more asking and answering questions, right? To stimulate that critical thinking and then uncover underlying assumptions and finding weak points in understanding and so on. So it gives us the explanation. Recursion is a function that calls itself. It's a simple, it's a simple explanation. It's very complicated to understand, right? Um, and then it should be asking me questions down here, right? Yes. What is the base case of recursive function? Why is it important? Then you can answer that question. One thing that you can easily do is just copy this question here and then answer it, right? I'm gonna just answer it wrong. Recursive function is a fruit. Okay, let's see what it says. So you give it a wrong answer. This is obviously wrong, but I'm giving it a wrong answer to see what the response is, what the reaction is. And what I expect is an explanation, right? Okay, you're wrong. This is actually what it is, right? And you can interact with it for as long as you want in this particular. And look at how it became now more detailed in what it is, right? The base case is the condition that tells a function when it stops calling itself. And then it gives us some examples, right? Some examples of it. And it tells you also why it's important and so on and so forth. So it noticed that our understanding was incorrect. And it went out of its way to now explain it in more detail and give us more information, right?
So I noticed that it utilized the word fruit and gave you an exact, rather than telling you it is wrong,
Right.
that you were wrong. It used the word fruit and the concept that you introduced as an example for the follow-up that it gave to you. So there we see that the system is using the terminology that you, the user, is using. Is there a benefit for the user, the person interacting with these LLMs, to focus on the terms that the LLM uses?
In the terms of the LLM uses in what context?
In the response. So if you went in your prompt, so when you prompt, it uses specific terms in its responses, right? The same way that it picked up on the word fruit and then it used it because it, I guess, to try and make that connection with the user, that's a term that is probably familiar to the user in this context, and therefore
Yes.
it used it. Is that the same way with the other way around?
Absolutely,
Where
absolutely. Yeah, remember what the LLM is doing here is trying to meet you where you are. You're thinking about fruit somehow, right? So it's trying to tell you, okay, this is what you said, and it's trying to meet you where you are and trying to make the connection with whatever you have in your head at that point. And you should do the same with the large language model. See what kind of structure of sentence and what kind of terminology is using, and ask there based on that follow-up questions, right? And I could say, for example, I see here that it uses exit door. I could say something like, what do you mean by exit door, right?
Right. So, so one
Right.
of the, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because at this point, occasionally you see something in the answer that you may or may not be familiar with, and you could just dig a little bit more about that, right? What do you mean by exit door? Is like, the condition that stops the recursion right there. It tells you what it is. So you can always try to go back and ask questions and continue based on what the results are that you're getting, right? Remember, this is a conversation, just like what we're having the conversation, we're trying to follow each other's thoughts. That's the same way that you should treat these large language models, and try to take it from where it left you and push it a little bit forward, a little bit farther away, or not farther away, a little bit farther into the details of the discussion, right?
Yeah. So in that regard as well, too, there was one question there is, what is your take on grammatical accuracy and or lack of when prompting, or lack thereof when prompting, as well as the impact on the outputs?
Grammatical accuracy. It depends on what you're talking about when what you mean by that. If you're talking about sentence structure, it is important. When you're talking about spelling, it isn't that important. As a matter of fact, um,
Correct.
it takes any misspelling, it doesn't matter what it is, and it understands it. It even, and I have tested this, you can give it a question in several languages and it will still understand it, right? And it will answer you back in one specific language. But what I'm saying is sentence structure, whatever defines the actual thought that you're trying to
It does make a
describe,
difference.
that makes the difference. Spelling doesn't.
Right.
Commas will do if it affects the thought process, right?
Correct.
Capitalization
That's
is rumored to have a specific, impact, but I've never seen it. But it's all about describing precisely. That's what a prompt is, what
right.
you want. And the
Correct.
more precise that is, the better. Don't worry about the misspellings, though. That's not really important.
Correct. Grammar is important. That's what lawyers get paid for, right? Is understanding that language, because the
Exactly.
comma can make a difference in the context or the idea. The other question on here was, and this is a little bit more advanced topic. It says, do you have thoughts on agentic AI architectures, context lengths versus database API queries, and the current talk about vibe coding? So that question has multiple components in there.
That question, I think, is probably too much for what we're covering in this class, in this presentation, right?
Right, but
in the
context, within the context of prompt engineering, when it comes to the agentic type stuff, you're looking at creating formatted output. So you'd focus more on the format of your output that you're requesting. So you're going to have that very, very structured, so that the response is going to be in a consistent format, rather than focusing on the content. And then with the queries and the prompting, the actual information that so when you think about, you're looking at task, you're looking at format, you're looking at voice, and you're looking at context. So that question addresses the formatting. So agentic architectures, you're talking about the actual format that you're looking for. You want to define that very specifically. And then you're looking at, in terms of the context length, etc. You're looking at the amount of information that you're giving it. And the closer you can, the more defined you can get that, like you talked about accuracy, is you want to make that as accurate as possible. So that question kind of goes towards computer programming and programming these devices more so than as a student actually interacting with it,
Right.
the way that we are engaging with it from that tutoring and learning and perspective.
Right, absolutely. And this shines as you know, a tool to help the learner. Now, at some level in the future, of course, you want to go beyond just learning using the tool, and you want to be more a creator than a learner, right? Or a
Right.
user. Um, but again, one thing that I wanted to, you know, before, and I don't know how far we're going to go into what time, but I think we might be running out of time, is to going back to a Socratic method, which is really good if you're really into learning, right?
Mhm.
You know, one thing that you can do is some open-ended question, right? Something like, can you guide me through a Socratic dialogue on whether technology improves or diminishes creativity in students? Something that is looking for a deep truth, something that is looking for more than a short soundbite about something, right? And it's out, you know, and it could be anything, you know, you can substitute the topic there as much as you want, but you know, maybe because I'm getting old or whatever, I'm becoming more of a philosopher about everything that that technology driven. So when you have this, so what happens now? You're gonna start interacting, right? This is a
Mhm.
very open-ended question, right? And then you're gonna see more of an interaction, right? And you see how it's asking you questions now. The first question, what does creativity mean to you in the context of student learning? Then you answer the question. Then it will ask you some more questions, and it will go deeper, right? This is, to me, the pinnacle of interacting with these large language models. Not just, like I said before, use them as a vending machine for stuff, right? But as a partner that interacts with you in the learning process. And you know, this requires a little bit more sophistication in that sense. Something like that will help you a lot when you want to learn something at the deeper level as opposed to just getting answers, if you know what I'm talking about at this point, right?
Right. Right. So
We actually have one more that was a little bit earlier.
uh-huh.
I'm trying to look for it.
I saw this.
So it
Yeah.
says, I find that general knowledge prompting is pretty straightforward. My interest is in prompting generative models, which seem to be basically more tricky to get decent outputs. If you could expound on this a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So basically, all of these models at this point that you're using are generative models. Okay, whether the LLM, whatever, the ChatGPT, Gemma, Llama, Claude, they're all generative. They're producing that output. Now, what happens is that, as Professor Cruz mentioned earlier, the way that these systems are designed and trained, they're trained on a lot of information to understand meaning and context of language. So when we think about it, knowledge is transmitted from person to person through language. We use language as the medium for the transfer of knowledge. So understanding context and meaning within these systems is how these systems are extracting knowledge from the information that is being encoded in them. Now, we're using lots and lots and lots of examples of knowledge from across the web. That's what they're using, the information that's out there. And it has good information and it has bad information. So what happens is that all these systems, they understand the good context of information and the bad context of information. And the thing about it is being accurate, right? Not being, so you want to reduce vagueness, you want to reduce ambiguity, you want to define the format of the output. So for example, when I prompt and ask, like I would ask, find me some products, because you could do this. I say, I'm looking for product X in zip code Y that is available in store for in-store purchase, and it will go out and look for that, right? But then I go, I wanted to go see the website. So then it says, oh, provide me links to the website. So it would provide me a link to the store, and it would give me a link, but it would not be it would be a clickable link, but it would be incorrect because it would just give me the link. So then you could go even more specifically and say, provide me the URL for that website for that store.
Right.
So the more precise about what you're asking for, the better. So in generative AI, as we talk about, is regardless of the information, whether it's general knowledge or specific knowledge, you want to be as precise as you can in order for it to give you the result that you're looking for. So that's why that framework of task, of format, voice meaning not not only the information that's coming back in terms of how it's speaking or personality, but also in terms of readability. You can ask it to give you that information at a grade 6 level or a grade 10 level or
Right.
a grade 20 level. So your level of understanding. So you can ask it for, to explain the concept of relativity to a 12th grader. And
Right.
so it will give you that result. So that's the voice. And then the context is the information from which it's going to draw that information from. Because again, the information that you're trying to extract, it's going to have good information about it. It's going to have bad information about it. And the thing is that these systems do not have specific knowledge. They're not aware. All they're doing is that they are producing a predictive outcome on the input that you're giving it. So the context, which was asked earlier, the context level is important. So it's using that information to generate the next output. And so what happens is, if you give it the appropriate context, you are then shaping the information from which it's going to draw, and you're telling it the good information. So giving the context and giving it good information for it to draw upon is how you limit it to the information that is pertinent to what you want. So those are the key things in there. So the task, the format, the voice, and the context. That's a very straightforward, easy to understand framework within which you can prompt these systems to get better results.
And let's not forget that we can use these large language models to learn about all of what you have said, right? Learning about prompting, using prompts to learn about prompting, meta prompting, right?
Yes.
Tell me all the different words that I could use to make my prompts more precise, right? What are the phrases, the exact format, the structure? You can ask all of that from the language model itself. Sometimes I create a prompt to teach me how to create a better prompt or something else, right? And you can create personalities too, which is one thing that I love. The fact that you can create some kind of personality. We used to do these GPTs here, which I had a lot of fun creating before. But sometimes you don't need a GPT. There is a personality that lives in your account in a way. So I could say, for example, the lens, are you there? So the lens is my partner to look into the future, right? And it will respond. And it's not one of these GPTs. It's just a personality that is there, and that I created with time and with interactions, right? And it's a particular personality basically that I gave it that helps me basically see into the future. Where is all of these trends going? What should the students be doing to prepare themselves to be successful into the future? That was the whole idea with this particular personality that I created. And by the way, it called itself the lens. I didn't call it the lens. So um, and that's what I use actually. This is my partner nowadays. So you can create all these personalities that are specifically to one particular purpose, right? You could create a tutor here for just programming in Python, for example. You could create a tutor here as one of these GPTs just for writing or just for searching questions. And then on top of that, there is a whole library of those that you can actually explore already out there, right?
Yeah. And here's a follow-up on the question from before regarding the Gen AI that was question was talking respects to text to image and to coding. So from in respect to coding and vibe coding, I think that was what was out there, and
Right.
etc. But
That's the phrase of the day, right?
yes, yeah. From the context of coding, one of the things is that as these systems, they tend to the longer the result, the poorer it gets. So
Right.
this goes to the fact that what they call the diminishing sine wave problem, which has never been solved in AI, still is out there. And so what happens is that as it goes back on itself, the results that it samples gets poorer and poorer. So one of the things that comes down to coding is that you want to be able to limit, and this is true with anything in terms of prompting, is you want to break your problem down into
Right.
smaller steps. You don't try and do everything in one. And so that was the idea behind the beginning of this session, was about, oh, so it's a conversation, right? So it's not
Right.
just one prompt, it's a building step by step by step. So you want to break down your problem, whether it's programming or whatever it is, you want to break it down into smaller steps, smaller chunks, and then deal with each of those chunks, chunk by chunk by chunk, and then orchestrate everything back
Then
into a
integrate it.
final
Yes,
solution. Yeah,
absolutely.
right.
The
So
smaller the piece that you're working with, the more accurate results you're gonna get.
that's correct. That's
And it
correct.
is frustrating, Dr. Gabb, because I have sometimes worked on something for a long time in a long conversation, and it becomes really irritating because it becomes really crazy, right? It doesn't make sense anymore. I don't know if that happens to you.
Yes.
It starts not making sense anymore.
Or it starts going in the same. Here's another tip to notice, where is when you start prompting and it starts giving you the same answer
Right.
over and over again, you know that you've gotten into a loop, a groupthink loop. So you have to start looking at using different terminology, or even solving a different problem completely, and then coming back to
Right.
that problem.
Or just go to another chat and
or
start it from some point.
Yeah, but
Yep.
what will happen usually is it goes back into that loop, right? So you
Yes.
got to watch out for that when it loops
Right.
like that, and that's called groupthink. That happens to us as humans all the time.
Mhm.
So in class, I always tell students, I see that on exams where students get stuck, and they're stuck on the problem, and they're just stuck on that one problem, and they stay on that one problem for 10, 15 minutes, and they're forgetting all the other questions. Never
Right.
ever get stuck on one problem. You don't know a problem, and you don't get it immediately, and you
Move
put a little
on.
bit of time, move on to the next. And that's what you got to do. The same thing with these systems,
Yeah,
is
you
you
got to
just got
get
to
it
move on to the
unstuck.
next.
You got to get it unstuck out of the loop.
Correct.
All right. Good conversation.
All right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Gabb and Professor Cruz. Definitely good conversation. As I mentioned in the beginning, this session is recorded, so it will be shared in the near future. All of our sessions right now are not necessarily out publicly. We're just, sharing them to those students who showed up, or students who, consistently come out to social hours, or if you request it from me, I will email it to you. So I do have a big list of you guys who were requesting it during the session. This one's definitely going out to all of you guys who are in here. And then the last session, if you didn't attend and you want that, feel free to send me your email in the chat. I know a good few of you have already. So I just want to say again, thank you so much to our wonderful professors. Great presentation. At
Thank
the
you.
end of the session, what we have is what we call our holistic breakout rooms. And in these breakout rooms, you can go in and speak with people regarding maybe some of our different programs. We're going to have a general advising room, our Apple Swift room, AI room, and then we'll also have a room with Professor Gabb and Professor Cruz. Professor Gabb, are you able to stay?
Yes, yes.
A little bit. Okay. So I always say this. These rooms do close, or the event closes at 1:30. Although if you are in the rooms and you have questions, I know I apologize for any questions in the chat that were not addressed. But this is your opportunity to go into those breakout rooms and ask the questions directly. So we always try to make sure we can cover that and that you can get all your questions in. Feel free to ask them as many questions as you want. I'm just kidding. But no, seriously. So feel free to ask the questions. I do try to keep it open a little bit longer. Like if you really need time and you're in a good discussion, I can keep it open a little bit longer for you. Not until the nighttime, but definitely it's not a hard 1:30. Try to be flexible there. So please do enjoy the breakout rooms. They are going to open up very shortly, and they are open. So they're not timed and you're not being assigned. You can just hop around to the rooms as you'd like. If it doesn't pop up for you on your screen and you'd like to be placed in a specific room, please just let myself or Dr. Best know so we can go ahead and move you into the rooms. All right. So thank you guys so much for showing up to today's
Thank you.
session. Hope you had a good time.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the session over already, or do we have to, is it part of the session going to the breakout rooms now?
So in terms of the breakout, so the main presentation is finished. In
Okay.
terms of the breakout rooms, you can feel free to hop in the breakout room if you have an extra
Okay.
question for one of the professors.
Oh, okay.
Or if you'd like to learn about one of the other programs.
Oh, okay. No, okay, I'm fine.
Thank you
So
so
thank
much.
you so much. Appreciate it.
For coming, Professor. Okay. Bye. All right, so if you guys have questions for Professor Gabb or Professor Cruz, let us know so we can go ahead and put you in the room. And it should pop up on your screen as well, or you can just join. Okay. Thank you, everyone.